This is Donnie Smith, and welcome to another DIY auto body and paint Q&A. Today we're going to talk about the sanding grits used for feather edging and block sanding primer and final sanding a paint surface to get it ready for paint. In the last video we talked about sanding body filler and removing paint coatings. Now that we have our body filler finished with a 150 grit, we're going to DA sand our surrounding edges. We're going to feather edge them with a 220 grit. And then all we'll have is 220, the edges of 220 grit and the 150 grit sand scratches in the body filler, and that can be primed. So after it's primed, I'll block sand with using 320, and 320 is a little bit coarse to paint on top of. I usually like to finish it out with anywhere between 400 and 600. That's kind of the range that those paint manufacturers give. But you can cut it with 320 a little bit quicker, and then come back and minimize the 320 grit scratches with your 400 to 600, whatever your preference is. I use, if I'm wet sanding, I use 400 grit by hand, or if I'm using a DA dry, I use 500 grit. You know, that's my preferences. So for feather edging, 220 grit. For final sanding, anything between 400 and 600 works well for prepping, you know, a surface for paint. Now, for clear coating, 600 may be a little bit coarse. I've known a few people that sand with 600 just to clear coat. But let's say we're just painting an area right here, and then we're going to blend the rest of this, and we're going to clear coat this whole panel, but we're just painting right here. If this was sanded in 400 out here, you'd see the scratches through the clear. So what we have to sand that with is anywhere from 800 to 1,000. I have heard of painters using 600. I've never used that. I'd be afraid that it'd show through. But anywhere between 600 and 1,000 is what's recommended for applying clear on top of. So again, just kind of recap that a little bit. Feather edging, I'm going to use 220. Block sanding primer, 320. And then finishing out the primer or final sanding a surface to prepare it for paint, I'm going to use anywhere from 400 to 600. And then for sanding an area just for clear coat, anywhere from 800 to 1,000. So that kind of gives you the idea of the grits. Keep in mind that the higher the number, the finer the grit. The lower number, the coarser the grits. That kind of helps give you an idea about that. But anyway, that kind of wraps up the primer and paint and clear. And next we'll talk about buffing, sanding and buffing. See you then.